Was already pulling out of the driveway when Amber said it. Not loudly. Not like she'd been building up to it. Just quiet. The way you say something you've been holding for a long time and finally got tired of carrying alone. I need to tell you something, but not here. I glanced at her. She was looking straight ahead, hands folded in her lap, and there was something in the way she sat, rigid, careful, that made me slow down before I even knew why. Okay, I said. We drove for a minute in silence. My wife Claire's birthday party was still going on back at the house. I could hear the music from the backyard even with the windows up. Amber had asked me to drive her home because she'd had a couple drinks and didn't feel right calling a rideshare alone that late. Claire had waved us off from the porch. Text me when you're home safe, she'd called to Amber. Normal. Easy. Nothing. Adrian? Amber said my name like she was testing it. Like she wasn't sure I was still the same person she'd known for 3 years. Yeah. How long have you and Claire been together? 6 years married. 8 total. She nodded slowly. And you've never, I don't even have to ask, do I? You're not that guy. I'm not sure what you're asking me. She turned to look at me then. Amber was Claire's coworker, the one who'd been around since before the wedding, who sat in the third row at our ceremony and cried. I had always liked her. She was the kind of person who remembered details. Your coffee order, the name of your dog growing up, the thing you mentioned once 6 months ago about wanting to learn woodworking. Pull over, she said. Please. I found a parking lot off the main road. A CVS, closed orange glow from the sign. I put the car in park and waited. Amber stared at her hands for a long moment. Then she said, I've been trying to figure out how to tell you this for 2 months. I almost didn't. I told myself it wasn't my place, that maybe I was wrong about what I saw. She paused. I wasn't wrong. The engine was still running. The heat was on because it was a cold October night, and the fan made a low hum that suddenly felt very loud. Tell me, I said. She did. She told me about a Tuesday afternoon in late August. She'd left work early with a migraine, taken the wrong exit by mistake, ended up on Franklin instead of Fletcher, and seen Claire's car parked outside a restaurant she'd never heard of. She almost kept driving. Then she saw Claire come out the front door, and she saw who was with her. His name was Preston. He worked in the acquisitions department at their company. Amber had met him twice at work events. She said he was the kind of man who wore expensive watches and shook your hand while already looking past you. She'd watched them stand on the sidewalk for a moment. She'd seen him touch Claire's face, not her shoulder, her face, with both hands. I drove around the block 3 times, Amber said, trying to convince myself it was something innocent. It wasn't. I don't know how long I sat there not saying anything. Long enough that Amber reached over and put her hand on my arm. I'm sorry, she said. I know. How sure are you? Adrian, unsure. I drove her home. I don't remember much of those last 10 minutes. I remember her standing in her doorway before she closed it, looking at me with an expression I didn't have a word for. Somewhere between guilt and grief and something harder to name. You deserve to know, she said. Whatever you do with it. I drove back through the city without thinking about where I was going. I ended up parked outside a Walgreens 3 blocks from our house. I could see the lights still on in the backyard from there. The party wasn't over yet. I sat in that parking lot for 45 minutes. Here is the thing about being told something like that. Your first instinct isn't rage. It isn't even disbelief, not really, because some part of you immediately starts running a quiet inventory of every moment you let yourself explain away. The way she'd been distracted for months, the new gym schedule, the work dinners that ran later than they used to, the way she'd started sleeping with her phone face down. I had chalked all of it up to stress. She'd been up for a promotion. I told myself I was being supportive by not crowding her. I was being willfully blind, and I had known it, and I had chosen not to look. I went back to the party. I smiled. I cleared plates. I hugged people goodbye and told them we'd have to do this again soon. Claire was laughing at something in the kitchen when I came inside, and she looked at me over her shoulder and said, There you are. Everything okay? Yeah, I said. Amber got home fine. Good. She turned back to her friends. I stood in my own kitchen and looked at the back of my wife's head and thought, I need to be smart about this. I called my brother the next morning. Not to tell him everything, just to ask, casually, if he still knew anyone at the law firm he'd used for his business stuff a few years back. He gave me a name. I wrote it down. Then I spent the next 3 days acting like nothing had changed. This is the part people don't understand unless they've been in it. You can't blow it up right away. Not if you want to protect yourself, not if there are joint accounts and a mortgage and a car in both names and a dog you both love. Rage is a luxury. Precision takes patience. I met with the attorney, a woman named Sandra who had a small office in Buckhead, and a manner that was warm and entirely unsentimental on a Thursday afternoon. I told Claire I had a dentist appointment. Sandra asked me 3 questions right away. Did we have a prenuptial agreement? No. Whose name was on the deed? Both. Did I have any evidence of the affair, or was I working from a single eyewitness account? Single account, I said, but reliable. Then don't confront yet, she said. Document first. She explained what that meant. Keep records of anything unusual. If there were financial transactions I couldn't account for, dinners, hotels, gifts, note the dates. If I had access to shared accounts, go through them carefully. She gave me the name of a private investigator her firm worked with. She said it the way you'd recommend a plumber. Professional, practical. I hired him the following week. His name was Roy. He was in his 50s, drove an unmarked gray sedan, and communicated almost entirely in short emails. He was worth every dollar. Within 11 days, Roy sent me a folder. I opened it on my laptop at my desk with the door closed. Claire was downstairs watching something on Netflix. I could hear the faint sound of the show through the floor. The folder had photographs, timestamps, a restaurant in Midtown I'd never been to, a hotel in Virginia Highland, dates that matched her work dinners exactly. I closed the laptop. I sat very still for a minute. Then I went downstairs and watched the last 20 minutes of whatever she was watching and went to bed. I didn't say anything that night, or the next night, or the night after that. I was thinking about the apartment. Claire and I had bought our house together 4 years ago. It was a good house, a brick Craftsman in Decatur, with a big backyard and a kitchen we'd renovated ourselves. And I had put more into it than she had. Not just money, but weekends, decisions, care. I was not going to leave my own house. Sandra had been clear about that too. But I started quietly looking, not to move out, to understand my options. I also talked to Amber again. I called her one morning while Claire was at work, and I was working from home. Did you know before August? I asked. No, she said. I swear to you, Adrian, I would have told you. How long do you think it's been going on? A pause. I don't know. I'd try to think back. There was a period last spring where Claire was acting kind of strange at work. Distant. I thought she was stressed about the promotion. Now I don't know what I was seeing. Has she said anything to you? Since. She acts completely normal. That's the part that Amber stopped. That's the hardest part. I believed her. Amber wasn't performing anything. She'd had nothing to gain from telling me, and something to lose. Claire was her work friend, her lunch companion, her +1 to company events. Telling me had cost her something. Thank you, I said, for telling me. I mean it. Please take care of yourself, she said quietly. I filed for divorce on a Friday morning in November, 6 weeks after Amber told me in that parking lot. Sandra filed it. I didn't see Claire's face when the papers were served because I was at my brother's place in Smyrna. I'd moved out the week before. Not because I had to, but because Sandra said it would be cleaner while the proceedings started, and because I genuinely could not spend another week sleeping next to someone I was in the process of divorcing. I stayed at my brother's for 3 weeks. Then I found a short-term lease on a furnished 1-bedroom in Inman Park. The apartment was fine. Small, clean, good light in the mornings. I had my laptop and my running shoes and a coffee maker and not much else. I ordered a bed frame off Amazon and spent a Saturday afternoon putting it together alone on the floor. And I remember thinking that I was not sad, exactly. I was something more like empty, like a room that had been cleared out and was waiting to see what would fill it next. The divorce proceedings were not dramatic. I had documentation. Roy's work was thorough. Sandra was methodical. Claire's attorney, someone I'd never met, a man whose name I only ever saw in paperwork, filed a couple of motions that went nowhere. There was one afternoon in December, about 3 weeks into the process, when Claire called me directly. I almost didn't pick up. "I just want to understand why you won't talk to me," she said. "There's nothing to talk about, Claire. You're throwing away 8 years because of—" "Because of what?" I asked. I kept my voice steady. "Finish the sentence." She didn't. "We can talk through our attorneys," I said. "That's what they're for." I hung up. Then I sat in my car in the parking garage under my office building for about 10 minutes before I felt steady enough to go back upstairs. There's a thing no one tells you about the end of a long relationship. It's not one pain. It's dozens of small ones that arrive on random schedules. You're fine for 4 days. And then you're in the grocery store and you reach for the brand of pasta sauce she liked. And you stand there holding the jar for too long. You're fine and then you're not. And then you're fine again. I ran a lot that winter. Miles I hadn't run in years. I went to bed early. I called my mother more than I had in a long time. The divorce was finalized in March. The house went on the market in April. The equity split was outlined in the agreement, and it was fair, because Sandra had made sure it was fair. The week after it was finalized, I went to get a drink at a bar near my apartment. Just to be out. Just to be somewhere with noise and other people. Amber was there. She was with a coworker I didn't know. The two of them at a table near the window. She saw me the same moment I saw her. She said something to her friend and then came over. "Hey," she said. "Hey." She looked different without the context of Claire's life framing her. Just herself. Blue sweater, glass of white wine. A little tired around the eyes the way everyone looked that winter. "How are you doing?" she said. Not like a pleasantry. Like she actually wanted to know. "I'm okay," I said. "Better than I expected." She nodded. "I heard the divorce was finalized." Word travels. "She's still at the company," Amber said. It's a lot some days." "I'm sorry," I said. "That's not a situation I put you in intentionally." "You didn't put me in anything. I made a choice." She looked at me steadily. I'd make it again. I bought her a drink and she introduced me to her friend and the four of us. Her friend had a boyfriend who showed up later, ended up staying for 2 hours talking about nothing important. Sports, a movie that had just come out. Whether the bar's burger was actually as good as the menu claimed. I walked home that night feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not happy, exactly, but lighter, like something had been set down that I hadn't realized I was still carrying. I texted Amber the next day to say thanks for the company. She texted back a photo of the burger receipt with the words, "completely worth it" underneath. We started getting dinner occasionally. Nothing formal. She'd text and say she was going to that Thai place on Ponce if I wanted to come. I'd say yes. We'd sit across from each other for 2 hours and talk, and then go home separately, and that was it. It took me a long time to understand what was happening. Or maybe I understood and just didn't want to rush it. Because for the first time in years, I was not in a hurry to be anywhere other than where I was. One evening in August, almost exactly a year after Amber had seen Claire and Preston on that sidewalk, we were sitting on the patio of a restaurant in Decatur. It was a warm night, and the lights were strung above the outdoor seating. And Amber was telling me about a road trip she'd taken with her sister when they were in college, getting hopelessly lost somewhere in Montana, and she was laughing at the part where they'd run out of gas on a 2-lane highway with no cell service, and I was watching her laugh and I thought, I don't want to go home. Not in a desperate way. Not in a way that scared me. Just, I want to stay here. With this person. In this exact moment. What? She said, noticing me looking. Nothing, I said. Keep going. What happened with the gas? She narrowed her eyes at me, like she could tell I'd been somewhere else for a second. But she kept going. On the drive home, I told her. Not everything at once. Not a speech. Just, I want to say something and I don't want it to be weird. She said, okay. I've really liked this the last several months. Getting dinner and just being around you. She was quiet for a moment. I've liked it too. I don't want to mess it up, I said. But I'd feel worse not saying it. We stopped at a red light and she turned to look at me and she said, Adrian, I told you about Claire because you deserved the truth. I kept having dinner with you because I wanted to. She paused. You're not messing anything up. The light turned green. Okay, I said. Okay, she said. It wasn't a movie moment. There was no music. I was driving a 4-year-old Civic, and we were on a surface road in Atlanta, and it was a Tuesday night. But I remember it exactly. The orange of the traffic light. The way her voice sounded when she said, "You're not messing anything up." The particular quiet that followed, which was not awkward and not sad, just full. I had spent 8 years building something I thought was real. And I had mourned it, genuinely. But standing in the wreckage of the life I thought I had found something I hadn't been looking for. Someone who had told me the truth when she didn't have to. Who had stayed anyway. Who'd sat across from me in a dozen restaurants over a year and let me figure out slowly, on my own schedule, what I actually wanted. Amber wasn't a rebound. She wasn't a consolation. She was what happened when you stop trying to salvage something broken and instead start paying attention to what's been quietly, patiently real all along. Claire got remarried 2 years later. I heard through someone who still knew someone. I wished her well, and I meant it. The way you genuinely wish someone well when they no longer have any power over you. I proposed to Amber on a Saturday morning in April. Not at a restaurant, not with a plan. We were making breakfast in her kitchen. She was complaining about how long it takes for the skillet to heat up. And I looked at her standing there, in an old Penn State sweatshirt with flour on her sleeve, and I just said it. She turned around with the spatula still in her hand and stared at me. "Are you serious?" she said. "Yeah," I said. She set the spatula down on the counter very carefully, the way you handle something you don't want to drop. Then she said yes. The skillet started smoking because neither of us remembered to turn the burner down, and we burned the eggs completely. And we stood in her kitchen with the smoke detector going off and both of us laughing, and I thought, this is it. This is what it's supposed to feel like. Not perfect, not cinematic, just real. I think about that CVS parking lot sometimes. The orange sign. The engine still running. Amber sitting next to me, hands folded, telling me something she had carried alone for 2 months because she didn't know if it was her place to say it. It was her place, and she said it anyway. That's the thing I keep coming back to, not the betrayal. I've made my peace with that, or close enough to it. What stays with me is how much one honest moment cost her, and how she paid it without hesitation. She had something to lose. Her friendship with Claire. Her comfort at work. The ease of just not getting involved. And she chose the harder thing, because it was the right thing. I don't think the world rewards that automatically. I stopped believing life runs on some invisible accounting system where doing right guarantees things go right. That's not how it works. Amber told me the truth, and it blew up her work friendships and made the next year uncomfortable for her in ways I only heard about secondhand. Cause and effect isn't always clean or fast or satisfying. But here's what I do believe. The kind of person you are in the small moments. The ones nobody's watching. The ones that cost you something. That compounds. It builds into something. Amber told me the truth not because she knew it would lead anywhere good for her. She told me because she had decided, somewhere along the way, to be the kind of person who tells the truth. Full stop. I think about the version of me who didn't find out, who kept explaining things away for another year, 2 years, who kept sleeping next to someone I trusted and building plans around a future that didn't exist. That version of me wasn't stupid. He was just choosing comfort over clarity, the way most of us do most of the time. Finding out the truth wrecked me for a while. But it also forced me to be sharper than I'd been in years. I had to think carefully. I had to be patient when everything in me wanted to react. I had to sit across from an attorney and talk through numbers and timelines and evidence, instead of going home and blowing up my own life in a single angry night. That patience, that discipline of waiting and thinking clearly when your chest feels like it's caving in, that's not something I had naturally. I had to build it. The situation built it in me whether I wanted it to or not. And the resolve it took to actually leave, to move out of my own house, to sit in a furnished one-bedroom in Inman Park and put together a bed frame alone and decide that this was not the end of something, it was the beginning of something else. That took everything I had some days. Claire made her choices. I can't speak to what she was thinking, or what she was missing, or what she told herself to justify it. That's hers to carry. I stopped trying to understand it, somewhere around February of that year, because I realized understanding it wasn't going to give me anything I actually needed. What I needed was to pay attention to what was actually in front of me. Amber was in front of me. She'd been there the whole time, honest, steady, asking nothing from me except the truth in return. And when I finally stopped grieving the life I thought I had, I could see her clearly for the first time. The eggs burned. The smoke detector went off. She said yes anyway. I don't know what else to tell you except this. The people who tell you the hard truth when they don't have to, hold on to them. They are rarer than you think and worth more than you know.